Hey, if you're planning to buy, renovate, and sell a property for profit, this is a video you're going to want to check out because you're going to need funding. And your lender is going to have specific requirements of you in order to get that funding, not just to get the funding, but also to get a term sheet or to get an estimate on what that loan is going to look like for you and your flip project. They're going to need very specific information to get a quote. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what you're going to need up front to get a fix and flip loan quote from a hard money lender or a fix and flip loan lender, so you can avoid back and forth delays. You can present everything in a professional way to keep your timeline down and to get your fix and flip loan quickly. So we're going to go through 4 different categories here. We're going to break it down for you. But first, quick refresher. What is a fix and flip loan? So a fix and flip loan is nothing more than short-term financing. Okay, usually these are 6-month or 12-month terms. They cover the purchase price, generally a large percentage of the purchase price, and potentially they can cover all of your rehab budget as well, 100% of your rehab budget. Now, these loans are asset-based, meaning the lenders are going to look specifically at that property and your underwriting of that property to determine if it's a deal that they want to fund. They don't care about W-2 income or tax returns or any of that stuff, but they still need the numbers from you in order to issue a quote or a term sheet for your fix and flip loan. But first, I'm Jeremy. I am a certified mortgage advisor based in Phoenix, Arizona, and we do lend all across the country. I am a mortgage broker and I'm also an active real estate investor, and I specialize in helping other investors, first-time home buyers, and I also help empower realtors qualify for smarter loans like DSCR loans, fix and flip loans, conventional loans, bridge loans. We have all types of financing, and I remove the fluff so you guys can make better decisions using leverage and financing to your advantage to create wealth. Thanks for tuning in. Step number 1. Okay, we want to talk about property details here, okay? The first thing the lender needs is an overall snapshot of the property that you're going to fix and flip. So some of the things you're going to need, which probably come to mind right away, let's see an address. Okay, we want to know the location of the property. We want to know if it's in a dense metro area or if it's a little bit more rural in designation. Some lenders prefer one over the other. We're going to want to know the purchase price. So you're going to need to produce the purchase contract, and keep in mind too, if there are additional contracts with that initial purchase contract. For example, if you bought this property from a wholesaler, the lender is likely going to need the original contract A to B, as well as the contract between you and the wholesaler. We're going to need your estimates on after repair value. Now, I love to advise, and I always will offer my 2 cents, but I always leave the underwriting up to the investor because the investor is the one that is the borrower, okay? So make sure that you come forth with your underwriting and some details about how you arrived at your after repair value. This is the value of the property after you finished remodeling everything you'd like to remodel to get that highest price possible, whether you're going to list on the market or whether you're going to refinance it out into a long-term loan. They're going to want to know the current condition of the property. Okay, so photos here are invaluable. The more photos, the better. I don't care if you have 300 photos of a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, the more, the better. We want to know everything about the outside of the property, the lot itself. We want to get ideas on what is external, what is near the property, what is bordering the property. Is it near commercial? Is it by multifamily? Is it on a busy street? Or is it in, back in some subdivision somewhere in the middle of a residential area? We want to know those things. And if you're going to do a fix and flip loan on a property that you already own, in some instances, you can do that. So we're going to need the mortgage statement, so the current lien information or the current loan information on that property as well. Now, all these pieces of information seem like they make pretty good sense here, right? So the lender's going to need all this info to do their initial underwrite. So not only will I help you do yours, but the lender's going to do theirs. So we want to present the best case possible for your financing need. Step number 2, okay, we want to talk about the rehab needed. How much remodeling are we looking to do here? So the rehab plan is a big part of the quote. We're going to need a detailed scope of work, okay? A lot of times you can put together a list in different categories for that property rehab. For example, you might have a category for plumbing, okay? You could have a category for electrical, roof repairs, HVAC, so your AC or your furnace or your duct work, those sorts of things. You'll have items like flooring. You'll have items like paint. You can break them up into rooms. So you could have a kitchen line item, and the kitchen line item might include all the cabinets, all the vanities, all the different appliances you're going to put in there, fixtures, light fixtures and plumbing fixtures, right? Or you could have all of these items separate. So you could have a cabinet line item, and that includes cabinets that would be in the living room, maybe if you have some built-ins, like an entertainment bar. You could have cabinets in the kitchen. You'll have cabinets in the bathrooms. You can even have cabinets in the laundry room, okay? So it doesn't really matter. There's not a hard, fast rule as to how to set these things into your scope of work, but make sure that what we're presenting to the lender is as accurate as possible. They might ask us to tweak a few things. They might want to know everything that's in the bathroom. They might want all that together. They might want it all separate, where you have cabinets and you have paint and you have plumbing fixtures separate. So keep those in mind. Now, timeline. Now, timelines are super important for the lender. They want to know if it's reasonable for you to do X, Y, Z on the property for it to take ABC amount of months, okay? So if you're getting involved with the flip and you have flooring and you have paint, maybe you're changing out appliances, maybe you're changing some plumbing fixtures and you're doing a little landscaping, well, that might take 4 weeks or maybe 6 weeks or possibly even way less, okay? If you're doing a complete remodel and you're tearing out everything and you're demoing walls and you're installing new walls and door frames and things like this, it's reasonable that those rehab items are going to take maybe a few months, maybe 2-3 months, or maybe even longer than that. We've had some new constructions that could take 9 months or even 12 months. So make sure that timeline that you're putting together is realistic, and also that will shift which lender might be the most appropriate lender to send that loan to, okay? Some lenders are going to be much better at that 6-month time frame. They're going to be way more competitive on their numbers, but some lenders might offer a 12-month or an 18-month or even a 24-month option for a fix and flip loan. Lastly, for step number 2, you're going to need information about who is going to be doing the work. Okay, a lot of times if you're going to run all of the different trades, all of the different professionals coming in to work on that home, that's okay. We just need to know what that overall quote looks like, and it has to align with what the market will bear. So the lender has to make sense of that, okay? If you have a general contractor or a project manager that's helping you with your rehab, that's even better, because now we can assign sort of an experienced individual, whether it's a contractor, or an experienced individual, whether it's a project manager. Okay, well, this is a fix and flipper that might be helping you in that market, get everything done, line up all the subcontractor trades, and keep everything on time. So knowing those individuals that will be in charge of the rehab is critical up front. You don't want to be scrambling last minute to put these things in place. The lender doesn't tend to like that too much. So we have to have that laid out ahead of time. And the takeaway with step 2 is the more you're prepared, the more information you have, and the more questions you can answer, the better off you're going to be, the better the loan package is going to look to the lender. All right, step number 3 is experience and the borrower profile. These things kind of line up together. This also includes finances. So even though fix and flip loans are asset-based, where they're looking at the property to determine whether that's a loan they're going to look to fund, they still are going to look at you, your experience, and your credit profile. So that said, experience is one of the big ones here. So experience can be anything from 0, where you've done nothing. You've done no flips in the last year, 3 years, or 5 years. And that's okay. There are loan products and there are terms available for you. They're not going to be as attractive as you can imagine. If you have less experience to provide to the lender, they might want to shore up or hedge that bet a bit by raising that interest rate or raising the cost of that loan a little bit, and that's normal. The more experience you have, however, the cheaper everything gets, okay? If you have 3 to 5 flip projects that are similar to the one that you're submitting to the lender in the last year to 3 years, even up to 5 years, oftentimes that changes your pricing for the better. So having those properties that you flipped in the past on hand, meaning you have HUDs or settlement statements from the closings of those properties to show what you purchased that property for, as well as what the property sold for or what you refinanced it out for. That's also an exit. You don't have to sell it on market. You can also just refinance it into a long-term loan and rent it out. That's also considered a very strong exit. So having those documents together on your past experience is critical. We're going to need an estimated credit score. So some lenders will do a soft pull on your credit, meaning you're not going to get an inquiry on your credit from this. And sometimes they'll do one bureau, sometimes they'll do more than one. And then some lenders do a traditional hard pull for a credit, which is they'll take a tri-merge credit pull from all three bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, to determine eligibility based on your credit score. Now, they're also going to look at available cash or reserves. And reserves are nothing more than how many months of this mortgage payment are you going to be able to pay that you have in a bank account, in a checking account, savings account, or maybe in a 401k or other sort of retirement account. What total amount of assets do you have on hand that are not going to be used for the property? That's reserves. So oftentimes we're going to look for a number that's like 3 to 6 months of reserves. The more experience you have, the less the reserves become a requirement. So lastly, under step 3, they're going to want LLC information. So if you're closing investing in an LLC, or you're closing in your personal name, both of those are okay. But generally, investors are closing investing in an LLC over their own personal name, and that's totally up to you. I'm not here to advise which way is better for you and your business, but if you do vest in an LLC, they're going to want to see a few things. They're going to want to see your articles of incorporation, which is your formation documentation for your LLC. They're going to want to see your EIN letter, which is that registration letter you'll get when you get an EIN letter, or like the business's social security number for your LLC. They're going to want to see that. And they're going to want to see an operating agreement, which lays out the membership structure of your LLC. Oftentimes that's an internal document, but the reason they'd like to see that is just to make sure that whatever members are in the LLC, that the appropriate members are the ones that are guaranteeing the loan, because somebody's going to have to guarantee that loan, which is why they require a credit score. And step 4 is your exit strategy. Okay, I mentioned this a few times already, but if your plan is to fix and flip this property in a period of a few months, and then your goal is to put it on market and sell it for market value, very common, very normal. Okay, they want to know what that is. And that's where they're going to assign that after repair value to make sure that that lines up with what the market will bear. This is why it's important to have comparable sales. When you submit a loan to a lender, you want to have as much of this information as possible, showing that you've done your homework, but also that you're kind of doing the homework for the lender. They're going to check your work, don't get me wrong, but they just want to know that you're prepared and that you're organized and you have everything that you need in place to support that number. Okay, now if your exit is to refinance it into a long-term loan, we have several of these working right now, where once the rehab is completed, you come back to that same lender and you start working on the refinance process, because you want to hold that property long term because of the cash flow potential, and you want to keep that equity baked into that property and hold it there for as long as possible. Those are usually the most common 2 exits that you'll find with fix and flip loans. And then, do you already have a buyer lined up? Perhaps. This has happened a few times for us. In the middle of doing a project, some projects took a lot longer than a year. We had a buyer lined up ready to go that was actually part of the process in picking out some of their finishes and having their landscaper come out. And we worked with the landscaper to finish the landscaping just like they wanted. That's a great boon for your business, is to have a buyer lined up and ready to go at closing, because now all you have to do is get that property finished and then turn that property over and sell to that buyer. With a nice clear exit, you're going to get a lot stronger terms and you're going to get more firm approval. And you're going to get a quicker approval. Now that we finished those 4 steps, let's break down a little bit more of the nuance behind the numbers. Okay, so as a inexperienced investor or a lesser experienced investor for fix and flips, you might find yourself with a 20% down purchase loan on the acquisition price for the property, and lenders will extend 100% of the financing for the rehab budget. As long as everything that we already talked about is true, the project looks good, the exit looks great, your comparables are dialed in, your borrower profile and financials are sound, that's generally what you can expect as a newer investor, is about 80% of the purchase price financed. Okay, in that case, we're going to need 20% down. Now, if you have a little bit more experience, or if we can use some of that experience that you do have, whether it's sort of on another shelf of experience, for example, wholesaling or wholetailing, which is acquiring a property and then selling it as is right on the market. You can use some of your other investor experience to shore up your experience in lieu of flipping experience. Sometimes that's possible and exceptions can be made. So for example, if you have a ton of experience in another arena in investing, oftentimes you might be able to use that experience to go from 80% financing maybe to 85%, where now your down payment's only 15%. And in some cases, if you have enough experience, and this is usually about the 5 project mark, so 5 projects completed, just like the one that you're flipping right now, you can get up to 85 and then 90% of the purchase price, meaning you're only bringing in 10% down at closing, plus your closing costs, and then you have 100% of the rehab financed for you. Now, there's also another factor here, 2 factors really. One is loan to cost, or LTC. If you see LTC is simply the amount of the purchase price added to the amount of the rehab that you're estimating. That is the total cost of the project. So if lenders say, hey, we're going to lend you 90% LTC. Okay, if you have a purchase price of $100,000 and your rehab is $50,000 and the property is going to be worth $250,000, that LTC at 90% is going to be $135,000. So that's your $150,000 total cost for that project minus 10% down. So that'd be $135,000 they would extend. And now that LTC cap includes your purchase and your rehab. Okay, so if your rehab is 50 and you take 50 off of 135,000, now you're left with $85,000 on your purchase price. So that gives you 15% down on the purchase and 100% of your rehab financed. Okay, so that's LTC. And then you also have what percentage of ARV are the lenders going to allow you to borrow? This is the other number that a lot of flippers miss when they first start doing this, okay? Some lenders go up to 70% of the ARV. Some lenders go up to 75% of the ARV. A lot of our lenders do the 75%, okay? So if you're, let's say you're at 75% for the example we just used, at $250,000 on a value, 75% of $250,000 is going to be $187,500. That 75% of ARV is the maximum threshold that they will lend on, $187,500 if your value is $250,000. So in the same example, even though we have a $100,000 purchase price and a $50,000 rehab, the cap is going to be $187,500, which means we've far exceeded that cap using the ARV metric, meaning you're not going to be limited in any way to that loan to cost figure. So 75% of ARV is one figure at $187,500, but the 90% loan to cost also applies. So using that same example, that 90% loan to cost still brings you to $135,000. That would be the number that is allowable for financing, which again is $85,000 on the purchase and $50,000 on the rehab. Now, lastly, with the rehab, it's probably worth noting how this actually works, because at closing, unless you're getting funding from, let's say, a private lender, an individual that's helping you with this deal, the lender is going to have guidelines on how you're able to draw that $50,000 in rehab funds. Okay, so oftentimes you might get a percentage or a dollar amount of that $50,000 applied and released to you at closing for you to go ahead and start the work. Because listen, contractors want something on the table in terms of payment to start the work that they're going to do. Okay, so they might release $15,000 or $20,000 for you at closing. Some lenders do this. Other lenders, they want to see work completed before they issue a draw or they issue a percentage of the rehab funds to you. Okay, so in that latter example, if you have $50,000 in work, you start work and you can use business credit, you can use credit cards, you can use your own cash, you can use various other ways to fund this deal, knowing that you have the rehab funds and escrow coming to you. Okay, so if you complete $15,000 worth of work in the first 2 weeks, you take all the documentation for work completed, you grab all the photo updates, and a lot of systems are are very easy right now for flippers to use. You can use apps. They have apps now you can pull up on your phone, and you can start inputting the pictures of completed work directly into the cloud. The lender reviews the photos in real time within 24 to 48 hours. And then within 3 or 4 business days, they're now forwarding that $15,000 and wiring that to your account. And they're releasing it to you. So you can go ahead and pay your folks for the work that they've done while they're continuing to do work on the second phase, okay? A lot of lenders will give you 3 or 4, sometimes up to 5 draws, depending on the scope of work and how much you're putting into the rehab. So it's important to kind of map this out too. You want to have a good idea what your timeline looks like so you can manage your contractors and your project manager so they know when funds are coming, but also you're going to hold them to their timelines as best you can. And we all know delays happen, but holding them to that timeline ensures that the funds are coming to you when work is completed. So it does take a little management here, a little bit of administrative work, but it's critical to keep your timelines nice and short so you're not waiting for a week to get more funds while your crews are waiting for those funds before they do more work, right? So you have to make sure that that's nice and tight, and you have to manage those crews effectively. As an example, for one of our lenders, they have a one-click draw policy. So you go into their portal, you upload photos for work completed with one simple click. A team on the back end at the lender's, place of business, they review everything, and then they issue those funds usually within 2 to 3 business days. One of the top lenders that we use, they actually get funds over to you in 24 to 48 hours, and they have roughly $260 million out on the street right now. So they fund a lot of fix and flip loans. And I just talked to the representative on Friday, and they said their average turn time for rehab draws is 1.2 days, which is stellar. So make sure you know what this timeline is up front from the lender that you're using so you can work that into your timeline. Now, there's a few other items that you're going to want to have on hand when you submit a loan to a lender for a fix and flip loan. You're going to want to know the insurance company that you're going to use for your quote. If you get a quote ahead of time before you speak to the lender, that's a good thing. Now, the lender is going to have criteria that you're going to have to meet with that insurance policy, but if you've already started the quote process and you have an open line of communication with your insurance rep, that's only going to play to your favor because, again, you're condensing the amount of time it takes to get these loans from the inception all the way to closing and funding. Another contact that you want to have up front is the title company. Now, this is oftentimes on your contract, right? So they're going to have escrow opened. You're likely going to put up earnest money, or there's going to be earnest money put up if you're working with a wholesaler, for example. So knowing who that contact is, who the main point of contact is for the escrow is critical. Make sure we have that information on hand if it's not listed on the purchase contract. And the other item that's going to take a little bit of time in the process is the appraisal. So a lot of fix and flip lenders will have an internal desk appraisal or a desktop appraisal, some sort of algorithmic tool that they use on their end. So they don't have to send an individual out there to do an in-person full-blown appraisal. And then some lenders do have an individual that they send out for a full-blown appraisal. So knowing up front, which one are we working with here? Are we going to send somebody out there and it's going to take a week, or can we get this appraisal process done to check your value, your ARV specifically? And is that going to take a day or two? Is that going to take a week, or is that going to take maybe 10 days? That will all affect your timelines. And then a few general notes regarding fix and flip loans. You know, lenders, they're very judicious, right? They want to make sure that they're lending money to projects that make sense. So if the lender comes back to you and says, yeah, the numbers just don't work, for the most part, believe them. You know, look at the numbers, look at the percentages that they're giving you and what they're stating they can lend on. See if there's some way to manipulate the terms of that agreement to make it more favorable. If the deal just doesn't fly, that happens sometimes, but use that as a tool and as sort of an education piece moving forward to further cement your underwriting, so that when you're looking at deals in the future, the process is a bit more seamless, you understand the numbers a bit better, and you have a better shot at getting financing quickly. And with that, a lot of lenders want to see about a 2-week time frame from when they get the contract and all this information we're discussing today between when they fund the deal. 2 weeks is pretty standard for a fix and flip. You can get them done quicker. We have lenders that do fix and flip loans in 3 to 5 days, but you pay for speed for fix and flip loans. So if you're seeing extremely high origination points and other fees listed on the HUD when you get prepared to close, don't be surprised if you're getting a 3 or 4 or 5 day, 5 business day turnaround between when they get all the information and when they fund the deal. If you have 2 weeks or more, you're going to be in really good shape because that opens up a lot of different lenders that are very, very competitive on their pricing, on their rate, and on their terms for that length of time to close. And specifically with fees, you might see fees anywhere in the range of 2 to 4 points. So 2 to 4% of the total loan amount is a normal cost for a fix and flip loan. Because the interest rate is higher, and it's generally interest only on a fix and flip loan, some of these loans only last 3 months. And in some cases, the lender might only get 2 payments or maybe even 3 payments from you. That's why they charge so much on the front end, is because they're not making a humongous amount of money on your interest, especially if it's a shorter loan. So you can expect to see higher costs up front for a fix and flip loan. The longer the loan, the lower the rate and the lower the costs might be, because they're making more money on those interest payments over time. If it's a 12-month, 18-month, or even a 24-month fix and flip loan, because it's a large construction project or a large remodel, it would make sense that maybe those costs and those rates are a little bit lower and a little bit more competitive. Now, here are some common delays that you can experience getting your fix and flip loan. So please try to avoid these whenever possible. Number one, make sure that your rehab budget makes sense, okay? And make sure it's specific as you can make it. If you throw on a sheet of paper, this is gonna run us about 50 grand, give or take, and you send that in, that's a red flag. If you leave out the ARV, or if the ARV is, it's anywhere from 300 to 400,000, that won't fly. The comparables that we're using that are closed sales need to reflect a much more narrow value range. It's okay if it's a $5 or $10 or even a $25,000 range for the after repair value, but try not to, send in something with a huge $100,000 discrepancy between your top end and your bottom end. Not knowing your exit plan is a huge red flag. Make sure you know up front, hey, we're going to list this on the market right away. It's going to sell for about this. The average time on market is 64 days. We've done that research, and here are 3 other comparables in this neighborhood that have recently sold in the last 6 months to use for your value. That's a huge help and helps the underwriters make sense of your file and get you a quicker approval. And lastly, for the things to avoid, try not to do this in a rush. If you have 4 or 5 business days, or even 8 or 9 business days, so maybe less than 2 weeks to do this, it really puts the lender in a tough position. They're only going to work as fast as they can work. If you need a much faster timeline, make sure that your file goes to a lender that can close in 4 or 5 business days standard. Like, this is what they do. They close in 4 to 5 business days. A lot of times we'll have files come in and we're scrambling for last minute information, and we put them with a lender that closes in 2 weeks, and now we're putting all the pressure on the lender, and the seller's upset, the agents are upset, the buyer, right? You will be upset. Hey, Jeremy, this thing isn't closing on time. Make sure that when everything is submitted up front, you have a nice long runway of time in order to get this thing closed in a reasonable amount of time. Bottom line is, preparation speeds up your approval process, and it makes the process smoother for everyone involved in the transaction. And you can set good expectations based on that. Now, if you're looking for fix and flip lending, if you've searched around before with different lenders to find out the best terms and rates and all these other variables we've discussed today, have these details ready, have them firm, do your homework, and then send everything to the lender. I help investors get quick, competitive term sheets out for their projects. So if you've got a deal in mind, drop me a comment, shoot me a message, or connect with me on social, or book a call at the link in the description below, and we can walk through it. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please click the like button and please subscribe if you'd like to see more investment-focused and wealth creation strategies in your YouTube feed. You can also check out my other videos on other financing products, whether it's conventional, FHA, VA, bridge loans, DSCR loans are very popular right now. And on top of all that, we'll throw in a bunch of creative financing strategies and tell a few stories from our own investment journey to help color the background for how best to use financing and to use leverage in real estate to help your wealth creation strategies. I'll see you in the next video.